You got married 1 month ago, and your wife already wants to move into my house. I yelled at my son while he calmly chewed the sandwich in his hand. I was standing in front of the door to my own home, unable to get in, the key trembling between my fingers. Ryan looked at me from the threshold with a coldness I had never seen in him. Behind him, Jessica was smiling with that triumphant expression that broke my soul. He shrugged, still chewing, as if we were talking about the weather. It's not just her decision, Mom. It's our decision. Both of ours. He pointed toward Jessica with a nod. And yes, we're moving in here. We've already decided. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. This was my house. The house I paid for. The house I built with my own hands, with years of work, of sleepless nights, of sacrifices that no one saw or appreciated. And now my son, my own son, was telling me they were going to take what was mine. This is my house, Ryan, I managed to say, my voice breaking. I paid for it. I worked my whole life to have it. You can't just decide you're going to live here without asking me, he sighed, as if my claim was an annoyance. Mom, we're not kicking you out. You can stay. But things have to change. This house is too big for just one person. It's a waste. Jessica stepped forward then, that smile still glued to her face. Eleanor, we understand this is an adjustment for you, but think of the positive. You won't be alone. You'll have company. And we can help you with the things you can't do alone anymore. Her voice was sweet, but every word was like poison, as if I were a useless old woman who needed to be taken care of, as if I were no longer capable of managing my own life. I don't need help, I replied through gritted teeth. And I don't need company. This is my house, and you are not moving in here. Ryan stopped chewing for a moment. He stared at me, and in his eyes, I saw something that chilled my blood. Contempt. Mom, don't be difficult. We've already made the decision. We're moving in next week, and you're going to have to cooperate. His tone was firm, final, as if there was nothing more to discuss. Cooperate. I repeated the word, feeling it burn in my throat. In my own house, I have to cooperate. Lucia spoke again, this time with a more direct tone, no longer hiding the coldness. Look, ma'am, let's understand something. This house has sentimental value for you. We know that. But things change. Ryan is your son. We are your family. And family helps each other. You've already lived your life. Now it's our turn to build ours. And we need this space. I was speechless. I had already lived my life? What did that mean? That I didn't matter anymore? That I no longer had a right to anything? That everything I built could be taken by them simply because they were younger? Ryan finished his sandwich and wiped his hands on his pants with total calmness. We decided that, if you behave, we'll let you stay in the guest room. It's comfortable. It has its own bathroom. You won't complain. Those words hit me with brutal force. The guest room, in my own house, as if I were the guest, as if they were the owners, as if my life, my work, my sacrifices meant absolutely nothing. No, I said, with all the firmness I could muster. I'm not going to accept this. This house is mine. You have to leave. Now. Ryan let out a dry, humorless laugh. Leave? Mom, we just changed the lock. Jessica's furniture arrives tomorrow. It's already decided. So you can make this easy, or you can make this difficult. But the result is going to be the same. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My own blood was betraying me in the cruelest way possible. He had changed the lock, without my permission, without even telling me, as if I didn't exist, as if my opinion didn't matter. You changed the lock, I asked, my voice trembling. To my house? Without asking me? Jessica crossed her arms. With that expression of superiority, I was beginning to recognize all too well. It was necessary, Eleanor. We needed to make sure things were done in an organized way. We didn't want unnecessary conflicts. Unnecessary conflicts, as if I were the problem, as if defending what was mine was irrational. I looked at Ryan, searching for any trace of the boy I raised, the son I gave everything to, whom I protected, whom I loved with every fiber of my being. But that boy wasn't there anymore. In his place was a stranger with cold eyes and a heart of stone. Ryan, please, I begged, hating myself for sounding so desperate. This house is all I have. It's my life. You can't take it from me like this." He shook his head in annoyance. "We're not taking it from you, Mom. Stop being dramatic. We're just going to live here. It's logical. It's practical. And it's already decided." Jessica took a step toward me, invading my space. "Eleanor, we suggest you take a few days to think about it. Go to a friend's house. Get some rest. And when you come back, things will be more organized. It will be better for everyone. For you, too." They were kicking me out. From my own house. They were kicking me out like I was trash. As if I had no rights. As if my existence were an inconvenience that needed to be solved. Ryan opened the door a little wider, gesturing with his hand as if inviting me to leave. "Mom, it's better if you go for now. We need space to organize everything. The movers are coming early tomorrow." I just stood there looking at them both, searching for any sign of humanity. Any sign that this was a nightmare I was going to wake up from. But there was nothing. Only coldness. Only indifference. Only that terrible certainty that my son had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I took a step back, away from the door. My legs were shaking so much I thought I was going to fall. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it would explode in my chest. Ryan closed the door slowly, unhurriedly, staring at me until the last moment. I heard the deadbolt slide into place from the inside. That sound was like a final sentence. A definitive blow that left me breathless. I was left alone in the hallway, in front of the closed door of my own home, with a useless key in my hand and a terrible emptiness in my chest. The hallway lights flickered slightly, as if even the electricity pitied me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I only knew that something inside me had just broken into 1,000 pieces, and that nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. But before I tell you how I got to that moment of total humiliation, let me introduce myself. My name is Eleanor Bishop. I am 70 years old, and this is my story. A story of betrayal, of ingratitude, and of how I got back what was mine when everyone thought I was already defeated. A story that many of you might recognize, because abandonment in old age is something that happens more often than we'd like to admit. But to understand how I got to that horrible moment in front of my house door, I have to take you back in time. I have to tell you who I am, what I built, and how much every square foot of that house my son decided to snatch from me cost me. I have to take you to the beginning, to the moment it all started. When I still believed my son loved me, when I still trusted him, when I still thought family meant something more than self-interest and convenience. Because that afternoon, standing in that dark hallway, with a broken heart and empty hands, I made a decision. I was not going to stay silent. I was not going to accept this injustice. And although I didn't know it at the time, that decision would change everything. To understand why I felt like I was dying in front of my own front door that afternoon, you have to know my story. You have to know who I am, and how much every brick of that home, which Ryan decided to take from me as if it were nothing, cost me. My name is Eleanor Bishop, and I am 70 years old. But I wasn't always this gray-haired woman you see now. There was a time when I was young, strong, full of dreams. There was a time when I believed love was forever, and that family was the most important thing in the world. I married very young, at 20 years old, to a man who promised to take care of me for life. Robert was his name. He was handsome, hard-working, said all the right things at the right time. I loved him with all my soul. And when Ryan was born, I thought my life was complete. I thought I had found my place in the world. But life has cruel ways of teaching you that nothing is permanent. Robert died when Ryan was just 5 years old. A work accident. A stupid fall that shouldn't have killed him, but it did. And from one day to the next, I was left alone with a small child, with no house of my own, no savings, nothing but my hands and my will to survive. Robert's family disappeared after the funeral. His brothers, who had promised so much to help me, never came back. His parents said they were suffering too, that they couldn't take on more responsibilities. So I was left alone, completely alone. With a child to feed and an uncertain future, I rented a small room in an old house downtown. I paid $200 a month that I could barely scrape together. I worked cleaning houses during the day, and doing laundry at night. Ryan spent his afternoons with a neighbor who did me the favor of watching him for a few dollars a week. I remember those endless nights, washing clothes by hand until my arms ached, my hands cracked from the soap and cold water. As I scrubbed and scrubbed, I would watch Ryan sleep on the mattress we shared and promise myself that one day we would have something better, that one day we would have our own home. Every cent I earned, I divided into 3 parts. One for rent, one for food, and one, however small, for the dream of buying a house. I kept that money in an old coffee can that I hid under the mattress. Sometimes it was $5, sometimes only $2, but I never stopped saving. Ryan grew, and I kept working non-stop. I cleaned 4 houses a day, 7 days a week. My knees started to hurt before I even turned 30. My hands filled with scars and calluses, but I didn't care. Every ache, every sacrifice was for him. It was for our future. When Ryan turned 10, I had already saved $3,000. It wasn't much, but it was more than I had ever had in my life. I kept saving. I kept working. I kept dreaming of the day I could buy a piece of land, even if it was small, even if it was far away, as long as it was ours. At night when Ryan was asleep, I would take out the coffee can and count the money. I touched it with reverence, as if it were sacred, because to me, it was. That money represented every hour of work, every backache, every time I said no to something I wanted because I had to save. Ryan never understood those sacrifices. For him, there was always food on the table. He always had clean clothes. He was always able to go to school. He never knew how many times I skipped meals so he could eat well. He never knew how many nights I stayed up mending other people's clothes so I could pay for his school supplies. When he turned 15, I already had $8,000 saved. That's when I heard that an older woman was selling a small house on the outskirts of town. It was old, it needed repairs, but the price was affordable. $15,000. It seemed impossible to me. I was still missing almost half, but I went to see it anyway. It was a simple 2-bedroom house with a small backyard. The walls had cracks. The roof leaked. The windows were broken. But when I walked in and saw that empty space, I saw more than just an old house. I saw a home. I saw our home. I spoke to the owner. I explained my situation. I told her I was a widow, that I had a son, that I had been saving for 10 years. I offered her the $8,000 I had and promised to pay her the rest in 2 years. She looked at me with suspicion at first, but something in my eyes must have told her I was serious, that I would keep my word. She accepted. She gave me 2 years to pay her the remaining $7,000. We signed a simple, handwritten agreement with no lawyers or banks. Just 2 women sealing a deal with a handshake and a promise. I moved into that house with Ryan the next day. I remember his face when he saw the place. He winced. "This is where we're going to live, Mom?" he asked in a disappointed tone. "It's horrible." His words hurt me, but I ignored them. "It's ours, son," I told him. "For the first time in our lives, we have something that's ours, and we're going to fix it up together." But Ryan never helped. He never picked up a hammer. He never painted a wall. He never swept the yard. He'd say he had homework, that he was tired, that it was adult work. So, I did it all myself. Everything, every repair, every improvement. I worked during the day cleaning houses, and at night I fixed my own house. I learned how to replace windows by watching videos at the public library. I learned to fix leaks by asking the guy at the local hardware store. I learned to paint walls because I didn't have money to pay anyone. And while I worked myself to exhaustion, Ryan was either out with his friends or locked in his room. Sometimes I'd watch him from the window and wonder if he would ever understand everything I was doing for him, if he would one day value this sacrifice. The 2 years passed faster than I expected. I kept cleaning houses. I kept saving every penny. And 1 month before the deadline, I had the full $7,000. I went to find the lady who sold me the house and paid her every last cent. She counted the money slowly, with her trembling hands, and then looked at me with respect. "You kept your word, Eleanor. Not many people keep their promises." She handed me the papers for the house. "It's all yours now." I took those papers with tears in my eyes. It was the deed. The document that proved that this house, however modest, was mine. That no one could take it from me. That I had achieved the impossible. I came home that afternoon and showed the papers to Ryan. "Look, son, I've paid off the house completely. It's ours. No one can take it from us now." He barely looked up from his phone. "That's great, Mom," he said without emotion, and went back to texting. There was no hug, no congratulations, no acknowledgement of the achievement his mother had just accomplished. That night, alone in my room, with the deed to the house on my chest, I cried. I cried with happiness for what I had achieved, and I cried with sadness because my son didn't value it, because for him, everything I did was just normal. It was expected. It was my obligation. But I told myself it didn't matter, that one day he would understand, that when he was older, when he had his own responsibilities, he would appreciate everything his mother did for him. I held on to that hope, and I kept going. I spent the following years continuing to improve the house. I replaced the old pipes. I fixed the electrical system. I painted every wall. I planted flowers in the garden. I bought second-hand furniture that I restored with my own hands. Every corner of that house held my sweat, my effort, my love. Ryan graduated from high school and got a job at an electronics store. He earned good money, but he never offered to help me with the household expenses. He never asked if I needed anything. He lived with me, ate my food, used my electricity, my water, but acted as if it all appeared by magic. I kept working, even though I was over 60 years old and my body was starting to cash in the bill for so many years of effort. My knees ached every morning. My back cracked every time I bent down. My hands, full of arthritis, could barely hold the mop. But I kept going, because that house was my pride. It was proof that a single woman could get ahead. It was my legacy. It was all I had to leave to my son when I was gone. Ryan was 38 years old when he met Jessica. I was already 69 and had started to think my son would stay single forever. Not that I cared much. After so many years living together, we had gotten used to our routine. I cooked, cleaned, maintained the house. He worked, came home late, ate, and locked himself in his room. We didn't have a close relationship. It had been years since I stopped expecting deep conversations with him. Years since I accepted that my son wasn't affectionate, that he wasn't grateful, that he was just like that, cold, distant. But he was my son, and this was his house as much as mine. Or so I thought. One Sunday, he arrived with her. Jessica, a woman of 35. Slim, with long black hair, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ryan introduced her with a strange formality, as if he were completing a mandatory task. "Mom, this is Jessica, my girlfriend." Those were his only words. He didn't say when they got together. He didn't say how they met. He didn't say anything else. "Nice to meet you, Eleanor," Jessica said, extending her hand. Her handshake was firm, almost aggressive. "Ryan has told me so much about you." I wondered what exactly Ryan could have told her, considering we barely spoke. But I smiled politely and invited them to sit. I made coffee and served some cookies I had baked that morning. Jessica sat on the sofa and began to look around with an expression I couldn't decipher. Her eyes scanned every corner of the living room, every piece of furniture, every detail. It wasn't a look of innocent curiosity. It was a calculating look, as if she were sizing something up. "Nice house," she said finally. But her tone didn't sound like a compliment. It sounded more like a technical observation. "How many bedrooms does it have?" "2, I replied as I served the coffee. "My room and Ryan's." "And how many bathrooms?" she asked, taking the cup without a thank you. "1 full bath and a half bath," I said, feeling something strange about her interrogation. "Why do you ask?" Jessica shrugged. "Just curious. The house looks big from the outside. I thought it would have more space." She looked at Ryan and he nodded slightly, as if they were sharing a secret thought. That first visit was uncomfortable. Jessica asked questions about everything. How much did I pay for electricity? How much for water? Was the house owned or rented? When had I bought it? How much had it cost? Questions that seemed invasive, Inappropriate for a first meeting. Ryan said nothing. He just drank his coffee and nodded whenever Jessica spoke. It was as if she was in control of everything, as if he were just there, playing a part. Before leaving, Jessica walked to the window overlooking the backyard. "This yard has a lot of potential," she commented. "You could do so much here. A deck, maybe? Or expand the house? Add another room?" Her words made me deeply uncomfortable. Why was she making plans for my house? Why was she talking as if she had the right to an opinion on what to do with my property? "The house is fine as it is," I said firmly. "It doesn't need modifications." Jessica looked at me with a smile that wasn't kind. "Of course, Eleanor. It was just a comment." But her tone made it clear it hadn't been just a comment. It was something more. After that first visit, Jessica started coming over more often. At first, once a week, then twice, then almost every day. And every time she came, she did the same thing. She observed. She evaluated. She commented on things that could be improved, changed, modified. "This couch is so old, Eleanor," she'd say. "You should think about replacing it. These curtains don't go with the wall color." She'd opine without being asked. "You need something more modern." "The kitchen is so dated," she'd say, looking at my dishes. "A remodel wouldn't hurt." I tried to stay calm. I told myself she was just trying to be helpful, to give suggestions, but there was something in her tone that bothered me deeply. She spoke about my house as if it were already hers, as if she had the right to an opinion on every detail. Ryan never stopped her. He never told her to stop commenting on his mother's things. On the contrary, sometimes he even agreed with her. "Jessica's right, Mom. The couch is really worn out." 1 month after meeting her, Ryan came home with news. "Mom, Jessica and I are getting married." "We're not kids, Mom," he replied, annoyed. "At our age, when you know what you want, there's no point in waiting." "But I barely know her," I said, trying to find the right words. "I only just met her a month ago." "You don't need to know her better," Ryan said coldly. "I know her. That's enough." The wedding was a small affair. Few guests. A quick courthouse ceremony. I went, of course, but I felt like an outsider. Jessica had her whole family there. Cousins, aunts, siblings, all celebrating and laughing. On Ryan's side, there was only me. Alone, as always. During the small reception they held at a restaurant, I overheard Jessica's family talking. "Jessica is so lucky," one of her aunts said. "Ryan has his own house. They won't have to pay rent." Those words confused me. Why were they talking as if Ryan had his own house? This was my house, not his. But I didn't say anything. I didn't want to ruin my son's day. After the wedding, I assumed Ryan and Jessica would look for their own place. It was the logical thing, the normal thing. Two newlyweds need their space, their privacy. But the days passed, and Ryan mentioned nothing about moving out. Jessica started staying at the house more frequently. First, it was a couple of nights a week, then the whole week, and suddenly she was just there, all the time. Her things started appearing all over the house. Her shampoo in the shower, her clothes in Ryan's room, her shoes by the entryway. I tried to be understanding. I told myself they were probably saving up to rent something, that it was just temporary, that soon they would leave and I would have my peaceful house back. But Jessica started to behave strangely. She moved my things without permission. She rearranged the furniture when I wasn't there. She changed the order of things in the kitchen. And when I protested, she looked at me with that fake smile and said, "I was just trying to help, Eleanor. The house needs a fresher touch." One day, I came home from the grocery store and found she had moved all my dishes. She had taken them out of the cabinets and put them in boxes. "What are you doing?" I asked, feeling my heart speed up. "I'm reorganizing the kitchen," she replied with total naturalness. "These dishes are too old. I bought some new ones. They're more modern." "I didn't ask for new dishes," I said, trying to control my anger. "Those dishes are mine. I've had them for years." "Exactly, Eleanor. They have too many years. It's time to change them." Her tone was condescending, as if she were talking to a child. "You have to learn to let go of old things. You can't cling to the past." Ryan walked in at that moment. "What's going on in here?" he asked, annoyed, as if the mere existence of a conflict bothered him. "Your wife is throwing away my things," I said, pointing to the boxes, my dishes, the ones I've used for years. Ryan looked at the boxes and shrugged. "Mom, they're just dishes. Jessica bought new ones." "What's the problem? What's the problem?" I repeated, incredulous. "What's the problem?" "The problem is that this is my house, and nobody has the right to throw away my things without my permission." Jessica sighed dramatically. "Eleanor, I'm not throwing anything away. The old things are in boxes. You can keep them if you want. But I understand that at your age, it's hard to accept change." At my age. Those words hurt more than I wanted to admit, as if being 70 made me incapable of thinking for myself. As if my opinion no longer mattered simply because I was older. "It's not about accepting change," I said, my voice trembling. "It's about respecting what's mine. This house is mine. These things are mine, and no one has the right to change anything without asking me first." Ryan approached and put a hand on my shoulder. "Mom, calm down. It's not a big deal. They're just dishes." But it wasn't just dishes. They were my dishes. They were part of my life, my history. Each one held a memory, a meaning. And now they were being replaced without my consent, as if they didn't matter. As if I didn't matter. That night, lying in my bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Fear. Fear of what was happening in my own home. Fear of this woman who had entered our lives. Fear of my own son, who seemed to have forgotten who his mother was. In the days following the dish incident, the tension in the house became unbearable. Jessica acted as if nothing had happened, but I could feel her gaze constantly evaluating me, as if she were waiting for the perfect moment to take the next step in whatever she was planning. She started coming home earlier from her job. Sometimes I would still be making dinner when she'd walk in the door, take off her shoes, and head straight for the kitchen. "Eleanor, what are you making?" she'd ask, looking into the pot with a critical expression. "That has way too much salt. Ryan needs to watch his blood pressure." I had never known Ryan had blood pressure problems. He had never mentioned it to me. But when I asked him, he simply nodded. "Yeah, Mom. The doctor told me months ago. I thought I'd mentioned it." He hadn't mentioned it. But Jessica knew. She knew things about my son that I didn't. And that hurt me in a way I can't explain. It made me feel like a stranger in my own family. Jessica started cooking some nights. She'd arrive with grocery bags full of ingredients I didn't recognize. She'd take over my kitchen, use my pots, my pans, and prepare meals that Ryan loved. He ate what she cooked with enthusiasm, while my food started to remain untouched on his plate. "This is really good, Jessica," Ryan would say, chewing with satisfaction. "You should make this more often." I would stay silent, picking at the food on my plate, feeling something inside me breaking, little by little. It wasn't just that Jessica cooked better. It was that my son preferred her food. He preferred everything that came from her. And I was becoming invisible in my own home. One afternoon I came home from the market carrying the heavy bags. My arthritic hands could barely hold them. I walked in the door and found Jessica sitting on my sofa, talking on the phone. When she saw me, she cut the call short. "Eleanor, we need to talk about a few things," she said in a serious tone. She stood up and walked toward me with her arms crossed. "I've noticed the house needs a lot of repairs. The bathroom has a leak. The windows don't close properly. The yard is neglected." "The yard is fine," I responded, setting the bags on the table. "And yes, there are a few things to fix. But I'm taking care of them, little by little." "Little by little isn't good enough, Eleanor," Jessica said with that condescending tone I was starting to know too well. "A house needs constant maintenance, and frankly, I think it's too much for you to handle alone." "I've managed this house alone for over 20 years, I said, feeling the anger start to boil in my chest. "I think I know what I'm doing." Jessica stepped closer, invading my personal space. "What I'm saying is that maybe it's time for someone else to make the important decisions about this house. Someone younger, someone with more energy." Her words hit me like a fist in the stomach. "Someone like you?" I asked, unable to contain the sarcasm. "Someone like Ryan and me," she corrected, with a cold smile. "We're a family now, and families make decisions together. This house is mine," I said in a firm voice. The decisions are mine to make. Jessica sighed as if she were trying to reason with a stubborn child. Eleanor, I understand you have an emotional attachment to this house. But you have to be realistic. You're 70 years old. How much longer do you think you can manage all this on your own? That question left me speechless, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I realized what she was really saying. She was treating me as if I were already useless. As if, just because I was 70, I was no longer capable of making decisions about my own life. Ryan arrived at that moment. Jessica immediately changed her expression to one of feigned concern. Ryan, your mom and I were just talking about the repairs the house needs. I think we should hire a professional to check everything. That costs money, Ryan said, dropping his backpack on the sofa. How much do you think it would cost? Maybe $1,500 or $2,000, Jessica replied. But it's a necessary investment. I don't have that kind of money, I said quickly. And I don't need to hire anyone. I can fix things myself. Jessica looked at me with feigned pity. Eleanor, you can't be climbing ladders at your age. It's dangerous. You could fall and break something. I've been climbing ladders my whole life, I responded through gritted teeth. I don't need you to tell me what I can or can't do, Ryan intervened then. Mom, Jessica is just worried about you. You don't have to get like this. Get like this, I repeated, incredulous. Get like this? I come home to find your wife telling me I'm no longer capable of managing my own life. How do you expect me to react? No one is saying that, Jessica said in a soft voice, but her eyes were hard as stones. We're just saying that maybe you need help. That maybe you can't do everything alone anymore. That's not a bad thing. It's natural. It's part of getting older. Those words hurt me deeply. Getting older. As if it were a disease. As if, at 70, I was worthless. As if my experience, my strength, my capability meant nothing. Over the next few weeks, the situation worsened. Jessica started inviting her family to the house without telling me. She'd arrive with her brothers, her cousins, her mother. They would sit in my living room, eat at my table, use my bathroom. And I had to serve them as if they were welcome guests. One afternoon, her mother was looking around the house with a critical expression. It's small, she commented aloud, but it has potential. With a few renovations, it could look much better. Jessica nodded enthusiastically. That's what I've been telling Eleanor. But you know how older people are. They get so stuck in their ways. They don't want change. I was standing in the kitchen, listening to every word, feeling my blood boil. They were talking about my house as if I wasn't there, as if my opinion didn't matter, as if they had already decided this house was theirs. Ryan came in and sat with them. He didn't defend me. He didn't tell them to stop talking like that. He just nodded and joined the conversation about what changes they would make to the house. My house. That night, when they all finally left, I locked myself in my room and cried. I cried with rage. I cried with helplessness. I cried because I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Because the house I had bought with so much sacrifice, that I had fixed with my own hands, was being invaded by people who didn't value it. The next morning, Jessica walked into my room without knocking. I was still in my pajamas, just waking up. Eleanor, we need to talk, she said, sitting on the edge of my bed without waiting for an invitation. What is it? I asked, feeling a bad premonition. Ryan and I have been talking, she began in a serious tone. And we think it would be better for everyone if we make some changes to the house. Big changes. What kind of changes? I asked, although I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. Well, for starters, this room is the biggest in the house, she said, looking around. Ryan and I need it. We're a married couple. We need more space. You could move into Ryan's old room. It's smaller, but for one person, it's enough. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You want me to move out of my own bedroom? It's not your bedroom, Eleanor, Jessica said coldly. It's a bedroom in this house, and it makes sense for the married couple to have the biggest room. It's logical. Logical, I repeated, feeling my throat tighten. You know what's logical, Jessica? That you and Ryan find your own house, that you stop invading mine. Jessica stood up from the bed, her expression hard. Watch what you say, Eleanor. Ryan is your son. He has just as much right to be here as you do. This house is mine, I said, standing up too. I bought it. I paid for it. The papers are in my name. Ryan has no claim on it. We'll see about that, Jessica said with a smile that chilled my blood. And she walked out of my room, leaving me trembling with anger and fear. After the conversation with Jessica in my bedroom, things changed drastically. The pretense of civility was gone. The mask had fallen completely. Now they acted with total brazenness, as if I were the obstacle that needed to be removed. That same afternoon, Ryan came home from work and called me into the living room. Jessica was already sitting there, legs crossed, with that look of superiority I hated so much. "Mom, sit down," Ryan ordered me, in a tone he had never used with me before. It wasn't a request. It was a command. I sat on the armchair across from them, feeling my heart pound harder and harder. I knew what was coming wouldn't be good. I could feel it in the air, in the way they looked at me, as if they were about to announce a decision they had already made without me. "Mom, Jessica and I have been thinking a lot about this situation," Ryan began in a cold, controlled voice. "And we've come to the conclusion that we can't go on like this. This house is too small for 3 people." "Then find another house," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're the ones who got married. You're the ones who need your own space." Jessica let out a short, humorless laugh. "Eleanor, let's be realistic. We are young, productive, we have our whole lives ahead of us. You, with all due respect, have already lived yours. You've had your time. Now it's our turn." Her words hit me like stones. "I've already lived my life? What exactly does that mean?" "It means it's time for you to let us live ours," Ryan interjected. "It means this house needs a young family. Children. A future. It can't stay frozen in time just because you're clinging to it." "I'm clinging to it because it's mine," I said, feeling tears start to sting my eyes. "Because I bought it with my money. Because every cent I paid for it came from my work." "You didn't put in a single penny, Ryan." "Not one. I'm your son," he retorted angrily. "Everything you have should be mine too. It's logical. It's natural. The natural thing would be for you to have your own house," I said, raising my voice. "The natural thing would be for you to respect your mother. The natural thing would be for you to remember everything I did for you." Jessica leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with malice. "Eleanor, listen closely to what I'm about to say. Ryan and I are going to move into this house. We are not asking for your permission. We are informing you. And you're going to have to decide if you want to cooperate or if you want to make things difficult." "Cooperate," I repeated the word, feeling my stomach turn. "Cooperate with what? With you stealing my house?" "No one is stealing anything, Mom," Ryan said, annoyed. "Stop being so dramatic. We're offering to let you stay. We're offering you a place in this house. A lot of people in your situation don't have that luxury." "My situation?" I asked, feeling the rage begin to overcome the fear. "What situation? The one of being the owner of my own house? Of having worked my whole life to have something of my own? The situation of being an elderly woman, alone, without resources," Jessica said cruelly. "Without us. What are you going to do? Keep living here alone until one day something happens to you and nobody finds out until it's too late?" Her words were designed to hurt me. And they succeeded, because they touched on my deepest fears. The fear of loneliness, the fear of old age, the fear of being left completely alone in this world. "I am 70, not 90, I said, trying to defend myself. "I can still take care of myself. I can still work. I can still manage on my own." "Work," Ryan let out a bitter laugh. "Mom, you barely get any work anymore. The ladies you used to clean for don't call you. Your knees hurt so much you can barely walk some mornings. Don't fool yourself." Every word was a stab. Because he was right about some things. Yes, my knees hurt. Yes, I had lost some jobs because I couldn't do things as fast as I used to. But that didn't mean I was useless. That didn't mean I didn't have a right to my own house. "This conversation is over," I said, standing up with difficulty. "I'm not going to listen to this anymore. This is my house, period." "Sit down, Mom," Ryan ordered in a harsh voice. "We're not finished." "I am finished," I replied, walking toward my room. But Jessica stood up quickly and blocked my path. "You're not leaving until we finish this conversation," she said with her arms crossed. "We're going to get things straight once and for all." "Get out of my way," I said, feeling my whole body tremble. "Or what, Jessica? What are you going to do, Eleanor? Call the police? Kick out your own son? Everyone would know what kind of mother you are then." I froze. She was right. If I called the police, if I made a scene, everyone would say I was a bad mother, that I was cruel, that I was kicking my own son out onto the street. No one would understand my side of the story. "Exactly," Jessica said, seeing my expression. "You understand the situation now. You're trapped, and the faster you accept it, the better for everyone." Ryan approached then, putting a hand on my shoulder. His touch, which once would have comforted me, now made my skin crawl. "Mom, it doesn't have to be difficult. You can stay in the small room. No one is kicking you out. You just have to accept that things are going to change. That you're not the one in charge here anymore." I jerked away from his grip. "I own this house. The deed is in my name. Legally, I am the one in charge. And you can't do anything about it." Jessica and Ryan exchanged a look. There was something in that look that frightened me deeply. It was like they shared a secret, like they knew something I didn't. "The deed?" Jessica said slowly. "Yes, let's talk about the deed. Where do you keep it, Eleanor?" My blood ran cold. "Why do you want to know?" "Just curious," she replied with a smile. "It should be in a safe place. Such an important document. It would be terrible if it got lost, or if something happened to it." I understood the implied threat in her words. They wanted to know where the deed to the house was. They wanted access to it. And I suddenly realized how dangerous this situation really was. "It's in a safe place," I said, trying to sound confident. "And I'm not telling you where." "It doesn't matter," Ryan said with indifference. "We'll find it eventually. This house isn't that big." The threat was clear. They were going to look for my documents. They were going to try to find the deed. And I knew that if they found it, I didn't know what they would do with it. Would they destroy it? Hide it? Use it for some kind of blackmail? I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake in my bed, listening to every noise in the house. Listening to see if Ryan or Jessica left their room to search through my things. The fear was so intense, I felt like I was suffocating. The next morning, when they left for work, I took the deed out from where I had it hidden. I had kept it in a shoebox at the back of my closet. Not the best hiding place, I knew. I needed to put it somewhere safer. I folded it carefully and put it in my purse. I decided I would carry it with me everywhere. I couldn't risk them finding it. Those papers were my only protection, my only proof that this house was mine. But as I walked through the empty house that morning, looking at every corner I had fixed with my own hands, I felt a profound sadness. This house, which had been my pride, my refuge, my greatest achievement, had become a battlefield, and I was losing the war. Ryan and Jessica returned that afternoon with a different attitude, calmer, more confident, as if they had made a definitive decision. During dinner, which we ate in tense silence, Jessica finally spoke. "Eleanor, Ryan and I have decided to give you 1 week to think things over. 1 week to decide if you are going to cooperate or not. After that week, we will act according to your decision." "I don't need a week," I replied, my voice trembling. "My answer is no. I am not handing over my house. I am not moving to the small room. I am not accepting any of your demands." Ryan slammed his fork down on his plate. "Then you'll have to suffer the consequences, Mom. Because we are moving in here, with your permission or without it." The following days were the most tense I had ever lived. Ryan and Jessica acted as if they already owned the house. They moved furniture without asking me. They made plans out loud about which room they would use for what. They talked about bringing their things as if I had already accepted the situation. I stayed in my room most of the time. I only came out to cook something quick and would lock myself in again. I carried my purse with me everywhere, with the deed to the house tucked in the bottom. I didn't dare leave it alone for a moment. One afternoon, while I was making tea in the kitchen, I heard Jessica talking on the phone in the living room. She wasn't trying to lower her voice. It was as if she wanted me to hear. "Yeah, Mom. It's almost all set, she said cheerfully. The old woman is resisting, but she can't do anything. Ryan and I are moving in next week. Yes, the whole house will be ours. She'll stay in the small room, if she decides to stay at all. I stood frozen, cup in hand. The old woman? Is that how she referred to me? With such contempt? Such a total lack of respect? I felt the rage boil in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. I couldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me explode. The next day, Ryan came home with boxes, large moving boxes. He left them in the living room and looked at me defiantly. We're starting to pack this weekend, he announced. Jessica already gave notice at her apartment. We're moving in 5 days. You're not moving anywhere, I said in a firm voice. This is still my house. Mom, enough, Ryan said, annoyed. This is going to happen. With your acceptance or without it. You can make this easy or you can make this difficult, but the result will be the same. Jessica walked in then, carrying more boxes. She looked at me with a victorious smile. Eleanor, I thought of something. We need a copy of the keys. For when you're not here and we need to get in, it's just practical. You already have keys, I replied suspiciously. Ryan has his key. We need more copies, Jessica insisted. For security. Where do you keep the spare keys? I immediately understood what they were doing. They wanted total control of the house. They wanted to be able to come and go as they pleased, without depending on me. They wanted to eliminate any trace of my authority. There are no spare keys, I lied. Just the ones we each have. Jessica narrowed her eyes. Fine, then we'll make copies of Ryan's. That night, when I thought they were both asleep, I got up and went silently to the front door. I checked the lock, thinking I would change it myself the next day. But when I tried to turn the inside latch, I found it wasn't working properly. Someone had loosened it. A shiver ran down my spine. They had tampered with it. They were setting the stage for what was coming. To take away my total control of my own home. I went back to my room, trembling. That night I slept with a chair wedged against the door. I no longer felt safe even in my own bedroom. My house had become enemy territory. The next day, while Ryan and Jessica were at work, I called a locksmith. I explained that I needed to change the lock immediately, but when he arrived and I told him the situation, he looked at me with pity. Ma'am, if your son lives here, he has a legal right to access the house, he explained. If I change the lock and he calls the police, you could get in trouble, even if the house is yours. But he's threatening me, I said, feeling the tears start to fall. He and his wife want to take my house. The locksmith sighed. Ma'am, this is a legal matter. You need to talk to a lawyer, not a locksmith. I'm sorry. He left without doing anything. And I was left there, feeling the walls close in on me. I couldn't change the locks. I couldn't kick Ryan out because he was my son and lived here legally. I couldn't do anything without looking like the bad guy, like the cruel mother throwing her own son out on the street. That afternoon, I decided to seek help. I went to my neighbor's house, Betty's. She was 75 years old, and we had been friends for years. I told her everything that was happening, every detail, every threat, every humiliation. Betty listened with a grave expression. Eleanor, this is serious, very serious. You need to protect those documents. The deed to your house. If they find it, I don't know what they might do. I carry them with me all the time, I told her, showing her my purse. I don't let them out of my sight. That's good. But what about when you have to shower? When you have to sleep? You can't live like this, Eleanor. You need a plan. She was right. I needed a plan. But I was so tired, so scared, that I couldn't think clearly. Betty took my hands. Listen to me. Tomorrow, you're going to come over and give me a copy of that deed. I'm going to keep it here, in my house. That way, if something happens, if they find the originals or take them from you, you'll have a backup. Her words gave me a bit of hope. At least I wouldn't be completely defenseless. Thank you, Betty. You don't know how much this means to me. We're neighbors. Eleanor, we're friends. And what they're doing to you is wrong. Very wrong. I went back to my house feeling a little stronger. But when I opened the door, the scene I found left me breathless. Ryan and Jessica had moved all the living room furniture. My sofa, the one I had restored with my own hands, was shoved against the wall. In its place they had put a new, modern sofa that I didn't recognize. "What did you do?" I asked, feeling my heart race. "We improved the living room," Jessica replied nonchalantly. "That old sofa was useless. We bought a new one, much better." "That sofa was mine," I said, my voice trembling. "I fixed it myself. It has sentimental value." "It had sentimental value," Ryan corrected. "We already took it out. The garbage truck is coming tomorrow." "They threw it out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "They threw out my sofa without asking me." "Mom, it was junk," Ryan said, annoyed. "Stop making a drama out of everything." I ran out to the backyard, and there it was, my sofa, thrown next to the trash cans as if it were worthless. As if the years I spent restoring it, the memories I had of it, meant absolutely nothing. I walked over and ran my hand over the fabric. I remembered when I found it at a garage sale for $20. I remembered how I cleaned it, how I replaced the stuffing, how I upholstered it myself with fabric I bought with my wages. It had been one of my first projects when I bought the house, and now it was in the trash. The tears started to fall uncontrollably. It wasn't just the sofa. It was everything. It was the way they were erasing my presence from my own house. It was the way they were eliminating every trace of me, everything I had built, every memory I had created. I went back inside and confronted them. "You had no right," I said in a broken voice. "You had no right to throw away my things." "This isn't just your house anymore, Mom," Ryan said coldly. "It's our house, and we're going to make the changes we want." "The papers are in my name," I yelled, losing control. "This house is mine. Mine alone." Jessica stepped closer with a dangerous expression. "Those papers you keep mentioning, Eleanor. Where are they? We've never seen them. How do we know they even exist?" "They exist," I said, clutching my purse to my chest, "and they're in a safe place." "In that purse you carry everywhere, I bet," Jessica said with a smirk. "What's wrong, Eleanor? Afraid we'll find them?" "You will never have them," I replied with all the firmness I could muster. "Never." Ryan stepped forward then. "Mom, give me that purse." "No," I backed away. "I'm not giving it to you." "Give me the purse, Mom," he repeated, holding out his hand. "Don't make me take it from you." My own son was threatening me. My own son, whom I had raised, fed, protected, was threatening to use force to steal my documents. "Don't you dare touch me," I said, my voice shaky but firm. "Don't you dare." There was a tense moment where no one moved. Ryan looked at me with rage. Jessica watched the scene with satisfaction, and I held my purse as if my life depended on it. Finally, Ryan lowered his hand. "Fine, Mom. Keep your stupid papers. But it doesn't change anything. We're moving in 4 days, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." That night, while they slept, I packed some essential things in a small suitcase: clothes, medications, a few personal items. And the next morning, very early, before they woke up, I left the house. I spent the next 3 days at Betty's house. She took me in without asking questions. She made me tea and let me cry as much as I needed. I had given her a copy of my house deed, just as she had suggested. At least that gave me some peace of mind. "You can't run forever, Eleanor," Betty told me on the second night. "That's your house. You have to face them." "I know," I replied, staring into my teacup, "but I needed time to think, to decide what to do." "Have you thought about getting legal help?" she asked with concern. "A lawyer could advise you on your rights." "I don't have money for lawyers," I admitted, feeling the shame burn my cheeks. "I barely have enough to get through the month." Betty sighed. "Then you're going to have to be smarter than them. You're going to have to use what you have. The documents that prove that house is yours." She was right. The documents were my only weapon, but I didn't know how to use them. I didn't know how to stop what Ryan and Jessica were doing. During those days, Ryan called me several times. He left messages on Betty's phone that she relayed to me. He says, "Where are you?" He says you have to come back, that they're already moving things, and they need you there too. "Organize your belongings." Organize my belongings. As if I were a guest collecting my things before leaving. As if they were the hosts, being generous by giving me time to pack. On the fourth day, I knew I couldn't hide anymore. It was my house. My home. I wasn't going to give it to them without a fight. So I grabbed my purse, made sure the deed was safely tucked away, and went back. When I arrived at my house that afternoon, the first thing I noticed was the moving truck parked outside. There were men carrying furniture I didn't recognize. New, modern, expensive. They were moving it into my house while taking my things out. I saw my dining table, the one I had bought at a clearance sale 15 years ago and polished until it shone, being carried toward the street. I saw my chairs, my lamp, my paintings. Everything being removed as if it were trash. I walked to the door, my legs shaking. I didn't knock. It was my house. I didn't have to knock. I put my key in the lock and turned. The door didn't open. I tried again. Nothing. My heart started to pound. They had changed the lock. I pounded on the door. "Ryan, open up! This is my house!" The moving guys looked at me uncomfortably but said nothing. They just kept carrying furniture, doing their job, oblivious to the drama unfolding. Finally, the door opened, and there he was, my son, Ryan, with a cold, indifferent expression, as if I were an annoying stranger. "Why did you change the lock?" I asked, feeling my voice break. "Why can't I get into my own house?" "You left, Mom," Ryan answered in an accusing tone. "You disappeared for 3 days without a word. We thought you'd made your decision, that you'd decided to leave." "I left because you were threatening me," I yelled, unable to hold back. "I left because I didn't feel safe in my own home anymore." Jessica appeared behind Ryan. She was wearing an apron, as if she were the lady of the house preparing dinner. The image made my stomach turn. "Eleanor, what a surprise to see you back," she said with fake sweetness. "We thought you had found somewhere else to stay." "This is my place," I replied, trying to push past. But Ryan blocked the entrance with his body. "Things have changed, Mom," he said in a hard voice. "We've moved in. Everything is organized. If you want to stay, there are rules you have to follow." "Rules," I repeated, incredulous. "Rules in my own house." "It's not just your house anymore," Jessica intervened. "It's our house. And if you're going to live here, you're going to have to respect our way of doing things." I pushed Ryan and forced my way in. What I saw left me breathless. The house was completely transformed. My furniture was gone. In its place was new, modern stuff I didn't recognize. The walls were painted different colors. My paintings were gone. My curtains had been replaced. "What did you do?" I whispered, looking around in horror. "What did you do to my house?" "We improved it," Jessica replied with pride. It was time it had a more modern look, more current. I walked toward my room, or what had been my room. The door was closed. I opened it, and the shock was total. My things were gone. My bed had been replaced by a new king-size bed. My dresser was gone. My photographs had disappeared from the walls. "Where are my things?" I asked, feeling tears well up in my eyes. "Where is my clothes? My belongings?" "In the guest room," Ryan replied, pointing toward the other room. "We told you you'd have to move in there. We did it for you while you were gone, to make things easier." I ran to the small room, the one that had been Ryan's for years. I opened the door, and there were my things, piled in boxes, stacked carelessly, my clothes thrown on the single mattress that barely fit in the space, my personal items stuffed into trash bags. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, this isn't happening." I turned to them, pure rage coursing through my veins. "This is illegal. You can't do this. This house is mine. The deed is in my name. I'm calling the police." Jessica crossed her arms with a smirk. "Go ahead. Call the police. And explain to them how you're kicking your own son out onto the street. Explain how you're being cruel to your only son who just wants to live with his wife. Let's see how they react." I pulled out my phone with shaky hands. But before I could dial, Ryan snatched it from me. "You're not calling anyone, Mom. You're going to calm down. You're going to accept the situation. And you're going to start acting like an adult. Give me my phone," I demanded, holding out my hand. "No," Ryan replied, putting it in his pocket. "Not until you calm down. Not until you accept how things are now." I stood there, without a phone, without access to my own bedroom, surrounded by strangers carrying furniture that wasn't mine into a house that was mine. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. "Look, Mom," Ryan said in a softer, almost reasonable tone. "It doesn't have to be like this. You can stay. You can live here. You just have to accept that things have changed. That Jessica and I are a family now. That we need our space. In my house," I said in a broken voice. "You need your space in my house." "It was your house," Jessica corrected. "But things evolve. Families change. And you have to evolve, too." The movers finished loading the furniture and left. The house fell into a heavy silence. I was still standing in the middle of the living room, or what had been my living room, feeling like an intruder in my own home. "We decided that if you behave, we'll let you stay in the guest room," Ryan said, repeating the same words he had used days before. "But there are conditions." "Conditions?" I asked bitterly. "Yes," Jessica chimed in, pulling out a piece of paper. "We wrote them down so everything is clear. First, you can't enter our room without permission. Second, you can't touch our things. Third, you have to let us know if you're going to use the kitchen. Fourth, you have to keep your room clean and tidy. Fifth, if we have guests, you have to stay in your room unless we invite you to come out." Every word was a humiliation. Every rule was designed to remind me that I no longer had any power in my own house. "I'm not accepting this," I said, my voice firm despite the tremor in my hands. "I'm not going to live like a prisoner in my own home." "Then you have two options," Ryan said coldly. "You accept the rules and stay, or you leave and find somewhere else to live." "This is my house," I repeated for the umpteenth time. "I am not going anywhere." "Then accept the rules," Jessica said, putting the paper away. "Because we moved in today. And this is how it is." I stood there, looking at them both, searching for any trace of humanity, any sign of remorse. But there was nothing. Only cold determination, only the certainty that they had won. Ryan finally gave me back my phone. "Here. But don't do anything stupid. Remember, this can be easy, or it can be difficult. You decide." I took the phone and locked myself in the small room. My new room. The room they had relegated me to as if I were an unwanted guest. I sat on the single mattress and looked at the boxes of my things. And then, with my hands still shaking, I dialed Betty's number. "Betty, I need help," I whispered into the phone, trying to keep Ryan and Jessica from hearing me on the other side of the door. They changed the lock. They moved all my things. They put me in the small room like I'm a stranger. "Eleanor, that's abuse," Betty replied, her voice alarmed. "You have to do something. You can't let them get away with this." "But what can I do?" I asked, feeling the tears start to fall again. "If I call the police, they'll think I'm a cruel mother kicking out her son. If I make a scene, everyone will be on their side." "You have the deed," Betty reminded me. "You have the legal proof that this house is yours. That's worth more than any emotional manipulation they try to pull." She was right. I had the deed. I had the proof. But I still didn't know how to use it. How to turn that piece of paper into a real solution. "Listen to me, Eleanor," Betty continued. "Tomorrow morning, you are going to go to a lawyer's office. I know one. His name is Mr. Evans. He's good, and the first consultation is free. You're going to show him the documents, and you're going to ask him to help you get your house back." "What if he wants to charge me?" I asked with worry. "I don't have any money, Betty." "Then we'll find another way," she replied firmly. "But you have to try. You can't just stay there and let them treat you like this." I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the small mattress, listening to the sounds of my own house. I heard Ryan and Jessica laughing in my bedroom. I heard the TV they had installed. I heard their voices talking about their plans to remodel the yard. Every sound was torture. Every laugh was a reminder that I had lost control of my life, that everything I had built was being snatched away from me. The next morning, I left the room very early. Ryan and Jessica were still asleep. I walked through the house in silence, looking at all the changes they had made. The new furniture, the freshly painted walls, the photographs of the two of them hung where mine used to be. It was as if I had never existed. As if my years in this house, my work, my sacrifices, had been completely erased. I grabbed my purse and left. I went straight to the address Betty had given me. The office of the lawyer, Mr. Evans, was downtown, in an old 3-story building. I climbed the stairs with difficulty, my knees protesting with every step. The receptionist greeted me with a professional smile. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I admitted, feeling small. "But I was told Mr. Evans offers a free consultation. I need urgent help." The receptionist checked her schedule. "You're in luck. He just had a cancellation. He can see you in 15 minutes. I sat in the waiting room, clutching my purse to my chest. Inside was the deed to my house. My only weapon, my only hope. When they finally called my name, I entered a small but tidy office. Mr. Evans was a man in his 50s, with graying temples and a kind expression. "Mrs. Bishop," he greeted me, extending his hand. "How can I help you?" I told him everything, every detail. From the day Ryan showed up with Jessica to the moment they changed the lock and relegated me to the small room. I spoke non-stop for 20 minutes, letting out all the pain, all the rage, all the helplessness I had been holding inside. Mr. Evans listened in silence, taking occasional notes. When I finished, he looked at me with a serious expression. "Mrs. Bishop, do you have the documents that prove the house is yours?" I took the deed from my purse and placed it on his desk. He reviewed it carefully, reading every page, verifying every detail. "These documents are legitimate," he said finally. "The house is registered in your name. You are the sole legal owner of this property." "Then I can kick them out," I said, feeling a ray of hope. "I can make them leave." "Mr. Evans sighed. "It's not that simple, Mrs. Bishop. Your son has residency rights because he has lived there for years. You can't just throw him out on the street without a legal process." My heart sank. "So I can't do anything." "I didn't say that," the lawyer replied. "What I'm saying is you need to follow a process. You need to file for a formal eviction. With these documents, you are certain to win. But it will take time." "How much time?" I asked desperately. "It depends. It could be weeks. It could be months. The legal system isn't fast." I felt the tears start to fall again. "I don't have months. I can't live like this for months. They've already taken everything. They've already pushed me into a corner of my own house." Mr. Evans leaned forward. "Mrs. Bishop, do they know you have these documents? Do they know you have the deed?" "They suspect," I replied. "They tried to take it from me. That's why I carry it with me all the time." "Good," the lawyer said thoughtfully. "Then let me suggest something. We can do 2 things. First, we start the legal eviction process. That will scare them. It will show them you're serious. The second is that you take control of the situation in a more direct way." "Direct?" I asked, not understanding. "Your son changed the lock, correct? That's illegal. You are the owner of the property. You can change the lock again. You can enter your own house whenever you want. And if they stop you, they will be committing a crime." His words gave me an idea. A dangerous idea, but an idea nonetheless. "What if I change the lock when they're not there?" I asked slowly. "What if I take back control of my house?" Mr. Evans looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Legally, it's your right. It's your property. But you have to be prepared for the consequences. Your son is not going to take this quietly." "I don't care anymore," I said, feeling something inside me harden. "I don't care about looking like the bad guy. I don't care what anyone else thinks. That is my house, and I am going to get it back." The lawyer nodded. "All right then, this is what we'll do. I will prepare the documents to initiate the eviction process. That will give you legal backing, and you will do what you have to do to protect your property." I left that office feeling different. I was no longer the frightened woman who had walked in. I was a woman with a plan, a woman who had decided to fight. I called a different locksmith. I explained the situation, showing him the deed to the house. "I need you to change the lock today," I told him. "And I need you to do it when the people living there are gone." The locksmith reviewed the documents. "If you're the owner, no problem. What time do you want me to be there?" "At 2 o'clock in the afternoon," I replied. "They'll be at work. I spent the next few hours at Betty's house, waiting, watching the clock every 5 minutes, feeling the anxiety and determination warring inside me. At 2 o'clock sharp, the locksmith arrived. I was waiting for him outside my house. "Ready?" he asked, taking out his tools. "Ready?" I replied, my voice firm. It took 20 minutes to change the lock. 20 minutes that felt like an eternity. Every time a car passed, my heart leaped, thinking it might be them coming home early. But no one came. The locksmith finished, handed me the new keys, and left. I stood there, holding those keys in my hand, feeling their weight. They were more than keys. They were my declaration of war. They were my line in the sand. They were my way of saying, "This stops now." I entered my house, and I got to work. I took all of Ryan and Jessica's things and put them in boxes. Their clothes, their shoes, their bathroom items. Everything. I worked for 3 hours straight, ignoring the pain in my back, in my knees. I moved all the boxes to the front porch. Then I took my things out of the small room and moved them back into my bedroom. My real bedroom. I hung my photographs back up. I put my clothes back in the closet. And then I sat down on their new sofa because mine was already in a landfill, and I waited. I waited for them to come home. I waited for them to try to open the door and discover their key no longer worked. I waited for them to realize that everything had changed. Because I had changed. I was no longer the scared woman who accepted humiliation. I was the owner of this house. And it was time for them to remember it. It was 6 o'clock in the evening when I heard Ryan's car pull up outside. My heart was pounding, but I kept calm. I had been preparing for this moment for hours. I knew exactly what I was going to say. I knew exactly how I was going to act. I heard his footsteps approaching the door, then the sound of the key trying to enter the lock. Once, twice, 3 times, then silence, then confused voices. "What's wrong?" I heard Jessica's voice. "Why won't it open?" "I don't know," Ryan answered, frustrated. "The key won't go in." They knocked, first gently, then harder. Then they started pounding. "Mom, open up." "What did you do?" Ryan was yelling in a rage. I stood up slowly, walked to the door, and opened it. The two of them stood there, their expressions a mix of shock and fury. Behind them, on the porch, were all their boxes. "What does this mean?" Ryan asked, pointing to the boxes. "What did you do?" "I'm taking my house back," I replied, my voice calm but firm. "I changed the lock. I packed your things, and now I'm asking you to leave." Jessica tried to push me to get inside, but I didn't let her. I stood firm in the doorway. "You are not coming in. Not without my permission. And you do not have my permission." "Are you crazy?" Jessica shrieked, her face red with rage. "You can't kick us out. We live here." "You lived here," I corrected. "But that's over. This is my house. The deed is in my name. And you are no longer welcome." Ryan tried to reason, his voice trembling between anger and desperation. "Mom, you can't do this. I'm your son. You're going to leave me on the street." "You left me in a small room," I replied, feeling the tears start to sting my eyes. "But I didn't let them fall. You changed the lock first. You threw out my things as if they were worthless. You treated me like trash in my own home. So don't you come to me now talking about abandonment. You're a bad mother," Ryan yelled, slamming his fist against the doorframe. "A terrible mother. This is why my father would have been ashamed of you." Those words hurt, but they didn't break me anymore. They no longer had the power to destroy me. "Your father would be ashamed of you," I replied in a quiet voice. "Of how you treated the woman who sacrificed everything to give you a decent life. Of how you tried to steal the only thing she had." Jessica pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. You'll see. They'll arrest you for kicking us out." "Go ahead," I said, crossing my arms. "Call them. And when they get here, I will show them the deed to this house that proves I am the sole owner. I will tell them how you changed the lock first. How you relegated me to a small room. How you threw out my belongings. And we'll see who gets in trouble with the law." Jessica lowered the phone, her expression shifting from fury to worry. She realized I was right. She realized that this time I had the power. Besides, I continued, pulling a paper from my pocket, I filed for an eviction today. My lawyer is processing it right now. You have 2 weeks to find another place to live, and if you try to enter this house without my permission, you'll be violating a legal order. It was a lie. The lawyer was still preparing the documents. But they didn't know that. And the lie worked. I saw the fear appear on their faces. You can't do this, Ryan said, his voice weaker now. You don't have money for lawyers. I found a way, I replied. It turns out that when a 70-year-old mother is being abused by her own son, there are people willing to help without charging. Ryan slumped onto the porch step, his head in his hands. Jessica glared at him, as if this were all his fault. And maybe it was. Maybe if Ryan hadn't married her, none of this would have happened. Or maybe he had always been this way, and I just hadn't wanted to see it. You can take your things, I said, motioning to the boxes. You have until tomorrow to get all of it. After that, anything left goes in the trash. What about the furniture? Jessica asked bitterly. The new furniture we bought. You can take it, I replied. I don't want it. I don't want anything that reminds me of this time. We spent over $5,000 on that furniture, Jessica protested. We can't just move it like this. You should have thought of that before you tried to steal my house, I said without sympathy. You have until tomorrow. After that, I'm locking the door, and whatever is left is lost. I went inside and closed the door. I heard them yelling outside for a few minutes. Then I heard the car start. They were gone, at least for now. That night, I slept in my own bed, in my own room. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace. It wasn't a happy peace. It was a heavy, mournful peace. But it was peace. The next day, Ryan and Jessica arrived with a moving truck. They didn't knock. They didn't try to talk to me. They just loaded their things and their furniture in silence. I watched them from the window, saying nothing. When they were finished, Ryan approached the door. He knocked, but I didn't let him in. We'll talk through the closed door, Mom, he said, his voice tired. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to open the door and hug him and forgive him. But I knew that if I did, it would all start over. He would take advantage again. He would treat me badly again. I don't believe you, Ryan, I replied, my voice firm. And even if I did, the damage is done. You destroyed something that can't be repaired. So I'm not your son anymore? He asked, his voice cracking. You will always be my son, I replied, feeling the tears finally fall. But you can't be in my life anymore. Not like this. Not after what you did to me. There was a long silence. Then I heard his footsteps walking away. I heard the truck start, and they were gone. The following days were strange. The house was empty without the new furniture. I had to start buying things again, little by little, with the little money I had. But everything I bought was mine. Every decision I made was mine. No one told me what to do. No one treated me like I was a burden. Betty came to visit often. We'd drink tea and talk. How do you feel? She asked me one afternoon. Alone, I admitted, but free. It's a different kind of loneliness than what I felt when they were here. That loneliness hurt. This loneliness is quiet. Have you heard anything from Ryan? She asked carefully. I shook my head. No. It's better this way. Maybe one day he'll understand what he did. Maybe one day he'll come and ask for forgiveness for real. But if that doesn't happen, that's okay too. I'm not going to live my life waiting for people to change. Months passed. I got my cleaning jobs back, little by little. I didn't earn much, but it was enough to survive. To pay my bills. To maintain my house. My house. Those two words meant something different now. It wasn't just a place where I lived. It was my victory. It was proof that a 70-year-old woman could defend herself, could fight, could win. One afternoon, 6 months after everything had happened, someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, there was Ryan, alone. Without Jessica, he looked different. Thinner, more tired, older. Mom, he said softly, can we talk? I looked at him for a long moment. Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face. Part of me wanted to scream at him for all the pain he had caused. But another part, a more tired, wiser part, just wanted to listen. "We can talk out here," I said, stepping onto the porch and closing the door behind me. I wasn't letting him in. Maybe I would never let him in again. But I could listen. "I left Jessica," he said, looking at the ground. "You were right about her. You were right about everything. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I know I can't undo what I did," he continued, his voice breaking. "I know I hurt you in an unforgivable way, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry." "What do you want, Ryan?" I asked, tired. "Forgiveness? For me to tell you everything is okay?" "No," he replied, looking up. "I know it's not okay. I know it might never be okay. I just wanted you to know that I regret it. That if I could go back in time, I would do everything differently." I looked into his eyes, searching for the truth in his words. And for the first time in a long time, I saw my son. Not the cruel man who had betrayed me, but the boy I had once loved with all my heart. "Thank you for telling me," I said finally. "But I need time. A lot of time. And I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I understand." He left. And I stayed there, on the porch of my house, watching the sunset. I didn't know if Ryan and I would ever have a relationship again. I didn't know if the pain he caused would ever fully heal. But I knew I had done the right thing. I had defended what was mine. I had shown that no matter how old you are, you can fight for your dignity. You can take back what was taken from you. I went into my house, locked the door, and sat in my armchair. My house was quiet, but it was a silence I had chosen. It was my silence. It was my peace. And that, after everything that had happened, was enough.